Are you looking to grow revenues, increase profitability, or obtain financing? If so, you came to the right place.
Running a business is all about leadership. How do you become a better leader? Learn from the successful entrepreneurs and business owners how to lead your organization more effectively. That's why we created Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business, to help you succeed with your host, Andrew Frazier, Business Growth Pro and CFO and founder of the Small Business Pro University. Every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're joined by experienced entrepreneurs and business owners who share their secrets to success via live stream. Also, every Friday morning, we release a new podcast episode. Either way, you will learn about developing your business leadership skills from our roster of highly performing guest experts. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at SBProU.com.
Good evening and welcome back to Leadership Live at 8:05. I'm your host, Andrew Frazier. Once again, excited to have you here joining live with us on the show. As you know, each week we have a great guest talking about valuable topics for business owners. Reason why we do this is because at the end of the day, your business can only go as far as you're prepared to take it. And it's important for you to continue to grow, develop your knowledge and your skills, and especially your leadership skills, so that you can become more successful in business and do it faster and easier. So that's really what Leadership Live is all about. If you've been getting my weekly emails, we send out the POW, P-O-W, the plan of the week, each week. And this week is Power Week. And why is it Power Week? Because this week we've got our annual Power Conference for business owners, as well as our Power Network event, both happening in Newark, New Jersey this evening. And this evening on the show, I'm excited to have Dr. Natalie Madeira Cofield as my guest. And not only that, she's going to be a keynote speaker at the conference. So you're going to get a sneak peek at her, but definitely after the show tonight, if you don't have tickets for the conference, you're probably going to want them. So Natalie is CEO of AEO, which is a great organization that does a lot for entrepreneurs and small businesses. But I'm going to let her explain sort of who she is and what she does. So I'm going to bring her on now. Good evening, Natalie. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. And I look forward to keynoting this Thursday.
Excellent. Definitely. Well, first, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us tonight. I know you've already had a long day probably, but appreciate you joining us. And hopefully, just like at the conference, you're going to come away energized because we're going to have a great show and we're going to have some fun. Sound
Absolutely.
good?
Sounds good.
Excellent. Excellent. So before I get started, it'd be great if you could share a little bit about your journey so people can know a little bit about who you are, where you're coming from, and then, we'll get started with the show. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm from a town in New York called Rochester, upstate New York. I always tell people it's the forgotten about part of the state. But it was really home to a lot of innovation. You had Xerox, you had Kodak, you had Bosch and Lomb, and I grew up working for what was a Black Enterprise 100 company. And I remember seeing what it was like to work on the assembly line, to work in the mailroom, and to work for a Black CEO, and to see my mother as a senior vice president at this organization. And the kind of inspiration that I received from that, just learning about the histories of the organization, learning words like procurement at 14, those were not things that you typically did. And my mother, who's also been a serial entrepreneur, used to have me reading her business plans when I was 11. So I always tell people that I really got my entrepreneurial prowess and my passion for supporting entrepreneurs the honest way. My father was also a professor of entrepreneurship at that time at RIT, focusing on digital imaging, and then later in his career at Carnegie Mellon. Some of the things that I really took away from during those times were just how impactful small businesses were to their community. At its height, Altrex, which I grew up working at, had 3 locations, employed about 500 people throughout the Rochester community. And it was just such a pinnacle of the city. It was an important part of the supplier diversity conversation. There were national and international business opportunities, and I was grateful for the opportunity to be exposed to that early. I went to Howard University, and there, again, I continued to see what I know as Black excellence, and I began to remove the ceiling of possibility of what limitations existed for me by watching others just come through who had gone to my school, others who had not. People in Washington, D.C. And I really wanted to figure out how I could blend my passion for small business with my interest in economic development. And just kind of going back just a little bit, one of the things that I was very impacted by when I was younger was that all of my friends came through into my school system through a program called Urban Suburban, which is a busing program. And many of their parents were blue collar workers that worked at places like Kodak and Xerox. And when the massive layoffs started happening in that industry, many of their parents were affected by that. And I remember seeing the disparities that existed between the ways that I was living, the ways that they were living, the things that their parents were doing, the job opportunities that existed. And even with Altrex, one of my jobs was to sit down and write down, where people lived so that we had hub zone qualification. We specialize in working with returning offenders. And so I felt like I saw the value of the ways that a business can generationally change an entire community. I know that there are people today, just like me, who will talk about Altrex Industries as the reason why their grandkids were able to go to college, or as the organization that put them through their first corporate job. And that was what it was designed for. And so I didn't really know the language of all of that until, I went to LA. I started on my career on Wall Street. And then I went to Los Angeles and I did economic development for then Mayor Villaraigosa. And that's when I started to kind of see the ways that cities and governments played a role in supporting or not supporting or hindering the growth and advancement of small businesses in their community. And my career really kind of took off with that in mind, right? So I came back to DC. I started leading economic development initiatives in the District of Columbia. I moved to Austin, and for 5.5 years, I was the CEO of the Black Chamber of Commerce in Austin, Texas. Simultaneously, for nearly 17 years, I've had a women's organization called Walker's Legacy that I just recently sunset. But we touched thousands of women across the country, giving them their first shot at entrepreneurialism and exposing them to other women who look like them to seek inspiration and mentorship and connection from. And then I got a call, and it was right at the peak of the pandemic. And it was, would you go into the administration? And I thought to myself, if there was a time where I would leave what I created, this would be something that I would do, which would be to go and support the largest infusion of capital into small businesses in the history of the United States of America, which happened, in 2021 and beyond. And so I went into the administration. I was the highest ranking Black woman at SBA. And then I came out and advised MasterCard. And now I'm the CEO of the Association for Enterprise Opportunity. People jokingly tell me that sounds like a lot of lives and I don't look like I've lived it. And I always tell them that sounds good. I got my mama's genes and some good under eye cream. But more importantly, this type of exposure just gave me the understanding firsthand of what it takes to run a business, because I did that. Employ people, I did that. Transition a business, I did that. Make a CEO, I've done that. lead government agencies that are supporting entrepreneurs. I've done that. Be on the ground as a chamber, working with folks who are just coming into your office to just vent and talk about the challenge of what it means to start a business. So I've really kind of been through the life cycle of entrepreneurship and watched it evolve and change. And obviously now, as you mentioned, Andrew, I'm now the CEO of AEO. We're a nearly 35-year-old trade association that's focused on supporting entrepreneurship and small businesses and the ecosystems that aid them across the country.
Excellent, excellent. Well, first of all, you definitely have a wealth of knowledge and excited to really be able to pull from it. Of course, an hour is not nearly enough time, but that's why people should come to the conference to get more time with you.
Yes.
But excited about the night tonight. Hey, Precious, how you doing? Thanks for joining us. Look forward to you emceeing the conference on Friday.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent, excellent. Hey, Darren, welcome. Always appreciate everybody tuning in. Appreciate your chat, your comments, your questions. So keep them coming. And we do the live stream, Leadership Live at 8:05 through Small Business Pro University. It's one of our brain trust initiatives where we focus on helping entrepreneurs and business owners be more knowledgeable and be able to be more successful in business. So before we get started, I just want to make sure everybody knows what Small Business Pro University is. So I have a short video on the university, and then we'll come back talking small businesses with Natalie. Many small businesses experience low or no revenue growth, and the owners are not making enough money. I founded Small Business Pro University to help you break that cycle by empowering you with greater knowledge and enhanced skills to lead your organization more effectively. Over the past 15 years, I've collaborated with organizations like the Small Business Development Center, Rising Tide Capital, Empower the Village, NJMEP, Rutgers University, and SCORE to work one-on-one with over 1,000 business owners and teach tens of thousands of people about business. My experience includes serving as a naval officer, managing businesses, graduating from MIT, earning an MBA from NYU, and achieving the CFA designation, which has prepared me to accomplish my mission of helping 1,000,008 business owners to sell more, maximize profit, and finance growth by 2028. My vision is to create the ultimate business ecosystem for entrepreneurs. Small Business Pro University empowers entrepreneurs like you to run their businesses more professionally and create sustainable enterprises. We employ my proven proprietary Masterpreneur Playbook framework to guide your journey along the Masterpreneur path and facilitate your Masterpreneur evolution to work on your business and scale faster and easier. Small Business Pro University provides access to valuable resources, partnerships, and relationships that will help you to sell more, maximize profit, and finance growth. Our Masterpreneur initiatives include the Small Business Pro Network, 100+ expert-led multimedia courses, intensive training workshops, Spanish language training, Leadership Live at 8:05 live stream and podcast, in-person Power Breakfast events, and advisory coaching, consulting, and training services. All right. Good evening. Welcome back to Leadership Live at 8:05. I'm here with Dr. Natalie Cofield, and the topic for tonight is what can you do in this moment? This is a very interesting moment for the whole country, and especially business, because there's a lot of uncertainty and there's challenges, but I always find that challenges create opportunities, and small businesses can be best fitted to take advantage of these opportunities because you can be more nimble and challenging. So Natalie, that's the topic we're seeing tonight. You really have a bird's eye view of what some of the trends that are happening now. Can you share a little bit of some things that small business owners should know about that, they may not see the big picture because they got their heads down in their business and focus, but they get affected by the big picture. So what types of things should they know about?
Yeah, so I want to say first that now more than ever, I think it's important for people to understand the role that government plays in everything that happens around small business. I think we've seen, we've vacillated between tariffs and no tariffs. We've gone from funding for this and no funding for that. And I think, again, we're going through this experience of really realizing the ways that government supports, engages, accelerates or hinders an economy. And so if, I could give any advice to a small business owner at this time, is that it's very important to keep up with some of the things that are happening in Washington. I mean, let me talk about it from this perspective, right? So why would you do that? Well, why wouldn't you? Here's why. If you're a retailer, you need, and you have any sourcing that you do from anywhere outside of the United States of America, from Canada to Mexico and beyond, this tariff conversation is very important to you. And you're going to want to keep abreast of it day by day as it unfolds. Why? Because it impacts your bottom line. Even if you are a liquor store owner and you're receiving liquor that comes from somewhere else, you are still impacted by the tariff conversation. And so all of this becomes about your bottom line. It becomes about understanding the ways that government initiatives have a tax or no tax, create a value or a detriment, or create some type of a financial dynamic that is going to impact your bottom line. The other thing that is also important now is to understand the ways in which the government is or is not looking at supporting small businesses. So I've talked about it from the retail perspective. I think, again, the retail industry has been very much so impacted by the tariff discussion and the tidal wave and storm that was. But you also see programs and initiatives that are focused on manufacturing. And in fact, right now, there's a bill that's going on that's about increasing the 7A loan limit to $10 million for manufacturing companies. And, many of us hear manufacturing and we think, oh, well, it's got to be this big facility. The reality is that small companies that started small, like Carol's daughter, that recently, just went back to privatization, but had previously been, acquired by a publicly traded company that started by Lisa Price in her, Brooklyn apartment in honor and homage of her mother, became a manufacturing company. Shea Moisture, which was also sold, became a manufacturing company. Mael Organics also was sold to a multi-billion-dollar corporation, and that was a manufacturing company. So, if you're making things, you are indeed manufacturing it. And so I just want folks to really digest the role that they play, the things that they're doing. And there are also times where you might be engaged in different parts of the small business life cycle. You might be manufacturing and on the retail side. You may just be on the retail side. But again, all of these things have implications. And when I say retail, I'm also talking about food. I mean, this year has been about, how high the cost of eggs are, right? Well, why does this matter? It matters because when we look at particularly Black and Brown communities, a large portion of the small businesses that are in those communities, physically in those communities, are small retail shops, they're small restaurants, and they're small delis and or grocers. That's what's typically and primary. All of those things impacted by tariffs, trade, and rising costs of ingredients and other things. So keeping yourself abreast is important because it will, affect your bottom line. And then the other things that I would say are, tangential industries. I've done a lot of research, and I know that the largest, bulk of Black and businesses are in a range of different industries, and many of them also align with social services, janitorial services, and professional services. all of which are things that are being impacted by the government's change in procurement. And so whether you're doing business with the government or not, doesn't matter. A lot of the corporations that you may be interested in doing business with may be doing business with the government. And so the trickle down of government policy changes from a procurement standpoint does have an impact on how you can do business. And for example, we're seeing that with the context of DEI and the changing landscape of DEI. We're seeing it in the changing landscape of minority certification programs. What does that look like on the federal government side? Well, many of your largest corporations have some dealings with the government in some way, shape, or form. And so many of them are then adopting the federal government's procurement standards. And that means that has serious implications and possible changes for you. So what can you do? Continue to do what you've always done, which is just be best in class. The opportunity that exists here is this. There was an old story about, I think it was Native Son, or, my mom used to tell me about this. And it was, this young Black man that gave him this sheet of paper, and they said, go give this to so-and-so. So he goes and gives it to so-and-so, and Mr. John says, oh, okay, well, go give this to Mr. Adams. He runs to go give it to Mr. Adams. And then he runs to go give it after Mr. Adams says, go to give it to somebody else. So, the long and short of it was he just kept running to give this piece of paper that he couldn't read, okay, to someone else. And when he was able to have somebody stop and look at this paper that was not a part of that dynamic, the piece of paper just said, keep him running. So every time he would go from one person to the next person to the next person. So if we think in some regards, now this may be, something to discuss, but when you as a minority business would go to a government procurement fair, first question they'd ask you is, let me see your paper. Do you have papers? Are you certified? No one else has asked that question. And so I did see, one of the viewers mentioned that with change comes opportunity. This does create an opportunity for you to just be able to jump in the game immediately, without having to pay the tax of some of these certifications that are required just to validate yourself, right? So that you have paperwork that folks may or may not use, may or may not look at, but also that can and sometimes does not give you advantage. And in some instances is not what other folks are required to have. They're just allowed to be great and go up and get a deal. But we have to have paperwork to go up and get a deal. And so I think the new opportunity here is, like I said, just continue to be great, right? Show up to these procurement events, continue to show up them. You don't just have to show up to the ones that have been segmented for specific markets. You go to the large one, because the paperwork at this point doesn't really matter in the same way that it used to. And I think that creates an opportunity for people to be more readily able to get into the game. I always used to tell people that a certification was just a license to hunt, but it didn't mean you were coming home with any kill. Not at all. And so now what we've said is just, in some instances, the gates to the reserve are open, and, you go out there and you figure out what game you can get, right? And that's your thing, but you don't have to go through the arduous process of this license before you even get to the gate that many other people have not been required to produce in order to enter. So I see that as an opportunity in a moment that many people are very concerned about, the change. Is the 8A program responsible for creating the largest cohort of Black millionaires in the nation? Absolutely. Do those people now have past performances? And is past performance king as it relates to doing business with the government or any large corporation? Absolutely. And so how can you take the experiences that you've had and leverage them for the next opportunity? Because what we've just seen across the board and what we're seeing is corporations and the federal government cutting back. Okay. And so now it's about the best quality product at the best price possible. So this is really, again, an opportunity for those head down entrepreneurs, if you're thinking about doing procurement, for you to really be thinking about what is going to set you apart, because it's not going to be the ABCDs of the licensing. It's going to be what you've done and who you've done work with and who you partner with and who will validate and vouch for you. And it's always been that game, because business is a game of relationships, and it's never not been. I think on the retail side, we've talked a lot about, I started talking a little bit about kind of what we see physically in the community, but we're going to continue to keep seeing things grow online. I was asked earlier about TikTok, and I know they're going through their moment now, but they will probably be sold. And the largest retail platform outside of Amazon is TikTok. And TikTok was actually one of the platforms that was responsible for, creating a millionaire Black woman in 60 minutes. She launched some type of makeup brand on TikTok. It became a viral sensation and totally sold out. So, we would never think, oh, TikTok, but we can think of TikTok. We could be thinking of these other platforms that I admittedly have just been too busy to be on. But if you are in the business of selling, your sphere of influence is, and the quality of how much you're able to capture is going to be based off how many eyes you get. And more importantly, the eyes that you get, how many of those are eyes that are actually looking for what you have to sell? And social media creates that type of dynamic now where you can say, I want this demographic. I want that. I want this. I want that. And so online is going to continue to be an important piece. But I see you back, Andrew. I want to talk to you.
Well, first I've got to say, if I had hair, it would be blown back, because you said such great stuff. Just a couple things that really stood out. Definitely. Just what you were talking about now, before the pandemic, someone shared that every company has to be a media company now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that's very true. And that shifted my whole business model to reflect that, because otherwise you're not going to be seen. And content is so important. But there's quite a few other things that you mentioned that I just want to go through. One was sort of the wild goose chase. And that's, you have to be careful of that, because as business owners, a lot of times, you get put on the wild goose chase, even by potential customers or actual customers, and your time is valuable, and you got to treat it as such. Also manufacturing. I've studied manufacturing, so I have a big love for manufacturing. And one of the key things is, manufacturing, it has been one of the greatest wealth creating areas, because it can be very scalable. So being able to invest that, being able to get financing to that is huge. And now, the government, you talked about how key the government is. And, my eyes have been open to that, because I always tried to stay away from the politics and all that stuff. And I'm still easing my way into it. But someone had said, many people look at the government as a big piggy bank full of money, and do everything you can to get as much out of it as possible.
If you're putting something in, right?
Right. So, but let's go back to research, because I think that many business owners don't do enough research. And also, just there's not a lot of good research out there. And I know your organization does a lot of research on business and small business. So if you could share a little bit about some of the research that you do and some of the key research findings that small business owners should definitely know about.
Can I, Andrew, can I blend that together with, and I'd love you to be on with me so we can maybe even back and forth, but there's one thing I didn't mention that is very pervasive now, and that's AI. I think AI is going to change the way that we all do business, the way that we all work, our lives. It fundamentally is the thing that is it's like the internet. AI to me is like what the internet was in the early 90s. And so that does, again, though, create, and there's so many different things that are happening legislatively around AI. It creates an opportunity for a small business owner to get in the game even faster. And so you mentioned research, right? So some of the things that small business owners are challenged with is to even be able to do market research to understand what the size of their market is, right? And that's a question that's in your business plan. And it's like, now you have the power of AI at your hands for something that could have taken you 6 months to finalize, right? Now you can do in a matter of minutes. And so I really just encourage people to take advantage, strategic advantage of what AI has to offer. Because if you don't, you will miss this moment again. Just like websites, you will miss this moment again. And this is a once in a lifetime type of situation that we have going on right now. And the only other thing I wanted to add, and I'm sorry, I'm going, back to some of the things that you mentioned. I know I might be talking about things at the federal government level, but let's be very clear. If your city passes a law that has any jurisdiction on what you do, it's affecting you too. If you're not properly zoned, that may affect whether you can open a restaurant or whether you can open a retail. And you don't know that you need these things until you gotta do them. Right. And it's like, you don't even know that you have to go through the government for your bathroom of qualifications if you want to open up a small restaurant. And if you don't, you might not be in compliance. You'll spend more money trying to get in compliance than you did. So it's, these are all the things that, I don't want to focus on the government from the big federal government perspective, but the small government can also put you in a situation to advance or to not succeed. And when I say small government, I'm talking about the government that's closest to you, your local mayor, your city council members that can do things that can help or hurt your industry. And so you should just really be keeping abreast of all of that. From the research perspective, I started with AI. We just recently did some research on our business health assessment tool. And Andrew, you probably will like this. This is a tool that we use to support entrepreneurs and kind of spit out information to them using some AI interfaces. But part of what we learned from our piloting of this is that no matter how much AI you put, you still need people.
Definitely.
You still need people. Because people, just like, when we call, I'm pressing 0 trying to get to an agent. Like, I don't even want to go through all the numbers. So if you can think about AI as the call center that you call, you still want to get to someone. Now, we do know that the landscape is changing considerably on how much you're going to be able to get to someone. But we know that getting to someone is going to be very important. And so we're continuing to do research on that. We also have proposals for research on how the change in federal funding with some of our, resource partners. You mentioned SCORE, you mentioned the Women's Business Center, you mentioned a number of these different organizations that have historically been the places that people go to ask any question that they want and have somebody work with them on something. And the funding for those programs has changed considerably. When I was at SBA, we had a $70 million budget for my Women's Business Center program. The proposed budget right now is $6.5 million. And so, to me, that requires some research. We've also looked at, done some really good research on Black businesses as part of our Tapestry project. And, there were some really good findings that came out of that. A lot of it had to do with trust in both ways, right? So there were a lot of banks that wanted to know how can we get more loans out to small business owners, more Black small business owners. And it really came down to the trust of the community in even taking out a loan. It wasn't even just about like who was giving the loan. It was the trust of the experience. Because when you go in for this, you're handing over all your paperwork, right? I'm giving you everything. And, if the organization is too close to you or too close to the ground, it can feel uncomfortable if you have to turn around and see that person at a networking event. And now they know all your goods, your bads, and your in-betweens, right? And so there is an opportunity to me to do more research even on how some of the online components of financing, I don't want to call it fintech, but just some of the online financial interfaces can help remove the feelings of fear, concern, and lack of trust that folks have with providing that type of information to people in order to qualify for loans.
Definitely. So
have you seen that, Andrew?
I have not. So
okay.
I look forward to learning more about it, but it makes sense. And, so, and, you mentioned the AI, which is huge. And, just like challenges create opportunities, AI creates opportunities. And it's in favor of smaller businesses versus larger businesses. So once again, being creative, being proactive, and being flexible, small businesses can actually run circles around larger businesses in different cases. So, definitely it's a good time. But what I want to do is take a minute because, you're going to be the keynote at our conference on Friday, and we have an amazing conference coming up. So very excited about it. And we've got our new conference video, so you can really see the extent of what the conference is going to be about. You can still register on our website, sbprou.com/conference. And here's a look into what you can expect. Hi, I'm Andrew Frazier, Masterpreneur and founder of Small Business Pro University. Join me at the Small Business Pro Power Conference on July 25th at NJPAC in Newark, New Jersey. To learn best practices, enjoy great networking, and gain useful knowledge. We will supercharge your day. To learn more and register, visit www.sbprou.com/conference.
This event was a wow. Every panel, every speaker has had so much amazing content and good information to share.
This is a good day to put aside to come out and do some learning, but also make some great connections. The ones that I made were impactful.
For more than 10 years, our events have directly generated tens of millions of dollars in revenue and financing for attendees. The conference theme is business success in times of uncertainty. It begins with the Power Breakfast, sponsored by TD Bank. You don't want to miss our keynote speaker, Natalie Madeira Cofield, CEO of AEO. She has been named one of the most powerful women in business by Entrepreneur Magazine. There will be 2 breakout sessions following the Power Breakfast. Nikisha Wilson will facilitate a panel on financial management from A to Z, and Irvin Hughes will lead a 10X Growth Accelerator strategy session.
Hey everyone, Irv Hughes here with American Credit Assurance. Hey, this message is to invite you to join me at this summer's Power Conference. That's right, folks, I'm coming to see you. I'm going to do 2 things while I'm there. I'm going to show you how to grow your revenue and profits.
After that is the Power Lunch, sponsored by Verizon Business and keynoted by Calvin Reed, business owner and executive vice president of New Africa Development Corporation. He was a co-founder of Connection Communications Corporation, Newark's original cable franchise. There will also be 2 breakout sessions following the Power Lunch. I'll be facilitating a panel on financing your business faster and easier. And Jessica Spaulding, president and CEO of the Harlem Chocolate Factory, will discuss strategies for networking and marketing your business. She has been featured in Forbes Magazine, Entrepreneur.com, and the Kate Spade Foundation. And then we'll wrap things up with a happy hour for networking and socializing. I look forward to seeing you at the Small Business Pro Power Conference on July 25th in Newark, New Jersey. To To learn more and register, visit www.sbprou.com/conference. All right, welcome back. I'm here with Natalie, and we're talking small business. Natalie, as the keynote at the conference, what is the topic of your talk? What should people expect to hear from you about?
Well, Andrew, I'm going to really keep it in a theme with, the entire conference and really focus on business success in a changing time such as this. So some of the gems that I have, I don't want to give them all away during this conversation, but it will definitely be illuminating for attendees to hear more about what it's going to take to get through this time and to seek the opportunities that are amongst us.
Definitely. So very much looking forward to it. And, a lot of people are excited about being there. So, we've covered some things, but, one of the things that you talked about, just looking at my notes, because once you get to a certain age, sometimes your memory isn't as good. But you talked about relationships and how important they are. Can you talk a little bit more about, maybe give some examples, from a small business owner's perspective about kind of key relationships and what they should be seeking in terms of relationships?
Yeah, I always share with people this story that the first kind of real contract that I ever got, I didn't get from the highest positioned person. I actually received it from the person who was an administrative assistant to that person. And I treated that person with dignity and respect when I interacted with them. And ironically, that person rose to become the head of the office. And when they did, they remembered me. And so part of relationships is about who you are just as an everyday person, the way you show up, the way you interact with people. And relationships are, to me, a valuable part of what is required to do business. When you're doing business with someone, whether it be a joint venture, whether it be a client-customer relationship, you're in a relationship with them, right? The way you talk to each other, the way you service each other, the way you engage with each other, the way you hold yourself accountable for reciprocity in what is there. If I'm exchanging service, I expect a compensation. I expect it timely. You expect it timely. It all becomes a part of your memory bank of who an organization is and who an individual is. And so, I think a lot of times small business owners struggle with relationships just from the perspective of breaking out of their shell to go in and network and connect with people in places and spaces that may not already be a part of where you are relationed, right? It also means that you have to invest into the ecosystem without it being such a transactional investment. Again, many people realize that when they have a conversation with someone, if you're just trying to get something from me, that doesn't always sit well. But if you start a conversation really trying to get to know the pain point and even the challenge of who that person is, what their division is experiencing, I think it helps you go back and put something together for them versus kind of coming to them already sales pitched with what you need. It doesn't give the opportunity for it to be a relational experience. I did say something about past performances. And in the game of business, past performance is king. People are going to ask you, just like someone before you get into a relationship asks you, well, tell me a little bit about your last relationship. They're going to ask you to tell them a little bit about your last client, your last customer, the work that you have done, the experiences that you've gained. And so having those experiences, whether small or large, is very, very important for not only your success, but also your ability to have the confidence that you need to build the relationships that you need in rooms that you might not be connected to. Now, where do organizations like yours, Andrew, I mean, Small Business Pro University and your conference, I mean, you get into the game by getting in the game, right? So you get in by going to the conferences and shaking hands with folks that you otherwise might not have necessarily met. You go by getting the information that is readily available to you. And not by saying, hey, I didn't know anything about that. You start to realize that you build a tribe of people who are running. I always tell people when they want to learn a little bit more about me or get to know me, that you've got to run alongside me. Meaning, like, I look and I'm like, oh, you're there. Oh, okay, you're at this event. Oh, so that means that we're running along the same trajectory. Not that we have to be in the same spaces, because I believe that there is vertical, horizontal networking that happens. I've received networking from women and men who are younger than me, older than me, in my own peer group. And so that entire sphere, that circle matters. That's the circle of the ecosystem of a small business. And the people in it matter. Relationships matter. They're king. If you have a bad reputation, your reputation will follow you into your business. And if you don't treat people well, it will also reflect itself in the way that you treat customers in your business.
All right. Yeah, definitely. Relationships are important, especially as a small business owner. You are your brand.
You are your brand.
I work with a lot of people, and if you ask them what my company name is, they'd be like, I don't know. I work with Andrew. So it's important to keep in mind that people are working with you. They work with people. And every minute of every day, you're contributing or detracting from your brand. And your brand isn't something that you can choose. It's really something that you can influence it, because it's what people say about you when you're not there, because that's really what gets you opportunities or doesn't get you opportunities. So, that's so important and great example of, how important it is to, really have key relationships. You have such a diverse background, and especially in small business and understanding of a small business. And it's great because, like you said earlier, you got it honestly, because you've actually been in small business, doing small business stuff. So talk a little bit about, some of the key things that, you learned that small business, helping small business, that sometimes a lot of other people who work with small businesses don't quite get. Because I think that, we have a lot of people on the show. Some are business owners, some aren't, and work with businesses. But if you were going to give someone some perspective that they might not have about helping businesses, what types of things might you recommend?
Well, I think one of the first things is a way that I framed the beginning of my conversation by just go ahead and be great. I think as minority entrepreneurs, a lot of times we start the conversation off kind of talking about us not being qualified or us not doing things right. And, the reality is when you work with a wide array of businesses owned by lots of different types of people from every walk of life, you realize that people just struggle in general with forming a business. And it's not something that Black or brown people are struggling with it at any higher level, in my humble opinion, than anyone else. Proposals look great that come from us, and proposals look great that come from others, and proposals have not looked good that come from us, and proposals have not looked good that have come from others. But I don't think that there's a burden of feeling like my proposal is not going to look good. And so if I, when I coach with small businesses and talk to them, I try to encourage them not through the lens of kind of not good enough, but the lens of you are already good enough, because so many small business owners are dealing with serious insecurity. Entrepreneurship is a nerve-wracking journey. It will make a real man, woman, and everything in between out of you. It will ask you to go to the depths of yourself and find even more inspiration, and then go ask people for help. And a lot of times people are challenged with asking for help. And so just the general idea that there's counseling, I mean, I can take this analogy so many different places, right? But the general idea of small business counseling is very therapeutic, not just because of the technical assistance that it provides, but also the relational, the human interaction that people receive. And so if you're coaching and working with small business owners, just know how valuable your voice is to them. You have the ability to speak, as they say, speak life over someone. I've seen myself, I've witnessed, that it's not really my job, so to say, to try to tell people what is or is not going to be successful, because we've all seen things, right? I've seen people get $20 million for a sock line, right? But if they came into an SBDC saying I'm making socks, people would be like, well, so I think, success is a matter of relationships, of luck, of being in the right place at the right time and being prepared, right? And so we do realize that there are folks that don't have some of those dynamics, right? Being in the right place at the right time, having the relationships with someone that is willing to write you $1 million check to invest in some socks. But you might be like me, where you have a young 9-year-old girl who comes to you where she has her lemonade, big tub, and, she's selling lemonade, and that's what she's doing. And you have a position of leadership where you have the ability to do business with her. So you choose to do business with her, and then you choose to honor her as a teenpreneur of the year and encourage that activity and celebrate that for her. And then you choose to place her at a table with Whole Foods. And Whole Foods, now we've got, preparation meets an opportunity, because we're talking about a relationship. So now she's building a relationship with someone, right? And all of a sudden, Whole Foods says, well, you figure out how to get this canned and we can have a conversation. Long story short, this young girl, ended up going on Shark Tank. She, I was in New York about to get on a plane. Her, parents called, said they were, nervous about going to the audition. I told her, you don't have to get ready when you've been ready. You better take her up there. And if I hear anything otherwise, when I get back, I'm going to be totally disappointed. They went up there, and, this young woman was a multimillionaire running a multi-million-dollar business by the time she was 14 years old. And that all starts with, again, lemonade in, a regular Walmart lemonade can, right? Nothing fancy, but people investing their belief in you, speaking life over you, supporting you, makes all the difference in the world about who gets to be successful and who doesn't. And so if you're coaching, engaging with small business owners, I would just say, look at the dedication and the commitment that they have, and not necessarily the beginning, right? Because if they said, if you're not embarrassed by your what you launched with, then you started too late. And that just essentially is saying, in short, that perfection is going to keep you from success, and that you should be embarrassed by what you started by, because it shouldn't look anything like what it will end up looking like, because anyone who works as a small business owner knows that you pivot, and the journey is a long, long marathon. It's not a short sprint. So that would be what I would say to folks, Andrew.
Okay, no, excellent. It's interesting what your last comment, because once I heard that most people are most successful on their third business.
Right.
So it means you have to hurry up and fail twice.
Yeah.
So try to be perfect the first time, you're delaying your success. So excellent. Yeah, definitely something, very valuable. And just, you also mentioned how, it's key to encourage business owners.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, I work with business owners sometimes, as a fractional CFO. And I'd say maybe 10% of what I do with them is numbers. A lot of it's leadership development. It's talking about strategies around the company or around the people. and really just give them someone to talk to that can understand what they're talking about. And, they can't talk to their employees because,
Yeah, you can. You got to be a leader for them. The coach, every coach needs a coach.
right. So that's key. I love doing this show, but the only bad thing is it goes too fast. We're almost at 9:00, and we could spend several more hours talking about it. So I'm gonna have to have you on the show again. But for now, before we close out, I always ask guests to share 3 key things that people should take away from the show, because you want something actionable, that they can take advantage and work towards tomorrow. But also, most people can't remember more than 3 things. So it's a good way to close things out. So I'm going to give you a minute to sort of think about that.
Okay.
And as everybody knows, we have the conference on Friday. So come join us on Friday if you're available. Let's see. So we've got Power Conference Friday. Let's see. Okay, there we go. So the Power Conference on Friday, NJ Pack, but we're going to get psyched up and, really kick the conference off in a great way. So we're having a pre-conference networking event the night before. So if you can join us on Thursday night, we're going to be in Newark at the Kruger Scott Mansion. And it's totally renovated mansion, set up for as a maker space for entrepreneurs who make things. And we're going to be there Thursday night. So hopefully you can join us. Even if you can't come during the day on Friday, you can come during the evening on Thursday night. So definitely consider it. And just a quick little bit about what to expect. I'm going to share a quick video about the networking session. Join us for the Power Network event at Makerhoods in the Kruger Mansion in Newark, New Jersey on Thursday, July 24th. Meet with like-minded entrepreneurs in a relaxed environment to chat, connect, and collaborate. I'm Andrew Frazier. Please join me at our Power Network event, and I look forward to introducing you to our members and friends.
Glad to host your network event here at the Kruger Scott Mansion. Thought I'd give you just a little bit of background. The entire Makerhoods campus here is a unique space here in Newark that encourages entrepreneurship at all levels. Of course, it's anchored by the Kruger Scott Mansion, a fantastic 1835 iconic building here in Newark. And we look forward to hosting you and your team here and sharing thoughts and ideas about how to help entrepreneurs grow and thrive.
To learn more and register, visit www.sbpro.com/power-network today. All right, good evening. I'm back with Natalie Cofield. And we've had a great show, talked about a lot of valuable stuff for entrepreneurs and business owners, but Natalie's just going to take and give you the essence, 3 things that she'd like you to take advantage of and take with you so that you can start implementing them starting tomorrow and be more successful in your business.
Absolutely. So let's see. I would say first, know your narrative and know your numbers. So it's important that you understand the mission and the financials of what it is that you're doing as a small business owner. And data drives all of this. So using what you have at your fingertips is going to be very important to the success and the sustainability of your business, because at the end of the day, to be in business, you have to be in business. And so profit has to be there somewhere. Don't build alone is something else that I would say. I've talked a little bit about how trying emotionally and mentally and even physically entrepreneurship can be for entrepreneurs and small business owners. And so no one builds a business in isolation. You have to find an ecosystem, mentors, peers, folks to support you and partners, because it's a team sport and it's not something that you can do alone. And then be ready for your yes, I would say. You want to be ready for the opportunity when it presents itself. As I said before, you don't have to get ready when you stay ready, right? And so know your stuff, be prepared, have your stuff in order, and opportunity will find you through your proactive outreach engagement. And when it does, you'll be ready for it. And it also keeps you in a yes mindset to believe that there's something greater that will happen for you.
Excellent. Excellent points. Thank you for sharing those. Definitely data and knowledge are key. Definitely nobody is successful on their own. Anybody you see that's successful, they had a lot of people that took part in their success, and being ready. Definitely it can be demoralizing sometimes. My daughter graduated from college and she's looking for a job now, and looking for a job could be demoralizing too. And but she only needs one job.
That's right.
So, if you take it at that perspective, you just do your best at every opportunity, and you only need one. So this has been tremendous. So I appreciate you being here. Anything you want to share before we close out, Natalie?
Just that if you hear no, it's not always about you, right? Sometimes the no could be they loved your proposal, they didn't have the budget for it. Sometimes no could be they wanted you for the job and they felt like you were too qualified, you might get bored. It's not always about again, the deficit mindset of something is wrong with you. You haven't done something proper. There are two dynamics going on, the one you can control and the one you can't. And there are a number of factors that go into the one you can't, that in order for you to stay sane, you just have to remember that as I can't control this piece. And I also don't know all of what goes into the decision-making that's happening here. And so I can't take it personally, especially if I know that I did my best.
Definitely. So, well, look forward to having you at the conference on Friday. Once again, if you're tuning in, Natalie's going to have a whole bunch more to share. And if you could hang on a minute, I'm just going to close things out, and we'll go from there. So, once again, thanks for tuning in, and glad we were able to have you on the show tonight. Hopefully you got a lot out of it. And, as you know, each week we have great guests who share a lot of valuable knowledge. So hopefully you can join us next week as well. And, at the end of the day, the more that you know, the faster and more successfully your business is going to grow. Take care and have a great week.
Thank you for listening to Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at SBProU.com.